What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
This is
RedPubPod. RedPubPod.
a podcast.
One more time.
RedPubPod.
There you go.
RedPubPod.
Okay.
From Red Hawk Publications.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you are, welcome to RedPubPod, the official podcast of Red Hawk Publications, a small, friendly press and creative initiative of Catawba Valley Community College, right here in the charming, crafty, and creative city of Hickory, North Carolina. Yay! Yay! I'm your host, Patty Thompson, acquisitions editor here at Red Hawk, and joined as always by my trusty podcast engineer extraordinaire. Thank you, Richard Eller, also the executive director of Red Hawk Publications. And together, we get to do one of our favorite things. We get to talk with Red Hawk's incredible creatives, and in this case, we've got two that are here from the hood. They're from our area, so that's always exciting. And the other thing that's kind of neat with our two guests that I will introduce momentarily, they are kind of related. They have this thing going on. It's the mentor-mentee. If you're old, you'll probably remember Master and Grasshopper. That's for all those boomers out there.
That's a Karate Kid reference, by the way.
Was it Karate Kid? The one with Keith Carradine. Kung Fu.
Kung Fu. Yeah. That's
Yeah, again, we're old. But the most important thing is that we are very, very happy to have in our studio once again Scott Owens. And Scott, you've been with us before.
I have, at least a couple of times.
Yeah, because you've done quite a few books and many with us, and we're blessed to say that. And we also have a youngin'. We got somebody who's kind of a noob in the studio, but has an amazing book out, and we're looking forward to talking to Gray about that. So yes, we're talking about Scott Owens, his most recent book that came out called Elemental, a wonderful poem collection that, again, always going to be available on our website at redhawkpublications.com.
Yes.
And our newest author of note, Gray Lee, still a student at Lenoir-Rhyne University, and Gray has an amazing debut chapbook out called Becoming that you can also get at our website. So we get to chat with both of them today.
Now, are you taking his class? Have you?
Not this semester, but I have in the past.
Okay.
I took it. First class I took was in high school, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Gray has taken every class they'll let me teach over there. So.
Okay.
That's awesome. And I know we're jumping ahead, but it doesn't matter. Time means nothing. We're all over the place, multiverse here. I noticed in Gray's collection, the dedication is to Scott. Might that be Scott Owens?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what about his classes do you really like?
Well, I don't know. They're poetry classes. They're just, it's nice to have a workshop, but also I've known Scott pretty much my whole life.
That's true.
So it was kind of nice knowing someone there, especially because the first class that I took was when I was in high school, because my high school had a program through LR that we could take college classes.
I actually met Gray, I think, when she was 6, and my daughter was in karate classes, and Gray was the only person who was about the same age, and so they were frequently paired together for sparring, and Gray routinely beat my daughter's butt. So.
And you said at that point, that's going to be a real poet there.
Not the first thought in my mind, but, I was definitely impressed with Gray's grit.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, we can call it that.
And we're grateful that it stuck with you. If you don't mind, and I know because Gray is new to our studio, but not new to Red Hawk, how did you end up on our radar? How is it that you learned about Red Hawk Publications?
So I kind of learned about you guys. Well, I'd seen that I knew that you were here because I'd seen the books that you had published, especially at Tasteful Beans. I mean, they have a whole table. But then I had a friend that was a intern for you guys, and I was looking for an internship, and she was like, "Oh, you should check out Red Hawk." And then everything just lined up perfectly. You guys were hosting a editing workshop, I believe it was. and the dean of my department got me and one or two other students to take that for free. So we got to do that, and then I talked to you immediately after. And then, yeah, now I'm here. I mean, I did stuff over the summer, but like...
Well, you did intern, and I remember that editing workshop. I think it was Rebecca Caldwell and Tom Rash, which are just pretty much the most outstanding editors in our state. And I remember you being in it, and I remember meeting you. And then I remember you being our intern. And I still don't know. You know, I always like to plant seeds in other people's heads to have them do what I want, get my evil little ways done. But you planted the seed.
did it to you.
You did it to us. How did we end up doing your book? Did you mention?
I think I did.
Okay.
I think there were a couple times that I was like, oh, but I'd like to publish at some point. And then we talked about, since my internship was unpaid, we were like, oh, well, we'll look at it. Maybe we'll publish something for you. We'll see. And then I just kind of kept bugging you about it until eventually you asked for the manuscript.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that was when, we unfortunately don't have paid internships, but we try to do whatever we can. You know, maybe
it helped for sure. I mean,
maybe
I got a book.
Maybe it's a cup of ramen once in a while for some of the interns, but in this case, when I read the poetry, I realized, oh no.
Strong work.
Yeah, this was not some 20, 21-year-old. This was seasoned experience.
You're not doing it because she was an intern.
Yeah.
An intern.
Yeah, because, you know, had it not been the quality it was, I would have probably told you, good work, keep at it.
Yeah.
But
well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, but this was strong. Scott, any thoughts on this? You probably knew this was coming, more or less. You knew that she had the talent to do it.
What kind of student was she?
She's a fantastic student, one of my favorites, and especially given that she was in a classroom full of college students, and you were a junior, I believe, at the time, so not even a senior in high school. And I looked forward to every poem that she would bring in. So I certainly saw that this was something that could happen. And I see that with a lot of students, and it doesn't always happen. I think I've had 25 former students now publish at least one book, which is really gratifying.
Yeah, it is.
But I could probably list off 100 that had the capability, and it just never happened for them. A lot of times real life takes over, and the publishing life kind of gets pushed to the back burner, if you will.
And in addition to grit, which you mentioned, what other qualities make a good poet, do you think?
Well, maybe this is the same as grit, but absolute courage. I mean, you've got to be courageous enough to be both significant and relevant. In other words, to explore the personal and the public in a single piece of writing, and try to capture it in a way that conveys that experience to others. You open yourself up to all sorts of criticism from all sorts of directions. So I think it takes a great deal of courage, and just also the ability to let your mind roam over things despite the fact that you've got 50 other things that are grappling for your time and your focus. And that's probably the hardest thing for any creative person to do if they haven't figured out some way to have someone else pay for their existence, is to just be creative while also taking care of everyday life.
Now, that determination, you must have had it from an early age, right?
I guess so. Well, I'm not for writing to begin with. I didn't know I wanted to do this until I took a class with Scott. I'd never written poetry before.
Oh, you didn't go in wanting to be a poet?
No, I took a poetry class because I needed an elective and I wanted college credit. And I was like, ooh, poetry sounds easy. And then I ended up really, really enjoying it. And then I was a wildlife biology major for a year. And then I switched to English and just started doing this, So
is poetry easy?
Wow.
I mean, sometimes, but not.
When you're in the right frame of mind, it seems
Yeah.
to just flow.
Sometimes
Okay.
it just happens, but sometimes I'll sit there and I'll look at something and I'll write something that I hate, or I won't write anything at all. And I'll just stare at what I've written and try and figure out how to fix it, and I can't, and I end up throwing it away, and I'll come back for it later, but...
I think Gray was also a very determined reader. And I don't know, what you were reading outside of class, but in class you came prepared to talk about every student's piece of writing. The reflections that you turned in on the assignments that I was giving them to read were always in depth. So Gray always had the courage. That was never a question. And it took, I think, you very little time to start to understand what made a gripping image, and then how to shape lines into lines that were both balanced and still interesting. And I think once you've got, and you appreciated the value of sound. So to me, those are the four qualities that you have to write good poetry. And you had one when you showed up, and the other three seemed to develop pretty quickly.
Yeah. I definitely think reading is one of the most important things to do as a writer. I mean, I took classes, I'm an English major, so I've taken classes on, like critical analysis of how people write, but when you actually read on your own, half of it becomes instinctual, and it makes the writing just not only that much easier, but that much more satisfying.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I heard you say, Scott, that one of the poems in this collection you remember from when she was a junior in high school?
I do,
The
absolutely.
namesake of the book was
Which is called?
Becoming,
The
yes.
the name of the book,
The name of the book.
poem.
It's the name of the poem. It was the first poem I ever wrote in that class.
And it's actually one of my favorites. And would you indulge us and read it? That would make us
It's
happy.
not in the original form that it was when I first submitted it, of course, but that's part of revision. Okay. Becoming. Who am I? I can tell you who I'm not. I'm not my mother's daughter, else my skin wouldn't crawl when she calls me young woman. I am not my father's son, else my arms would be able to carry the weight of his father and his before him. I am not their Christian child, even as I fall to my knees with my tear-stained cheeks, praying to a God whose hand has not reached down to us in thousands of years. I am not truthful, as lies spill from my mouth, weaving the web of my mind into a knot impossible to untangle, morphing fact and fable till I cannot even tell the difference. You ask me who I am, but I sit mute with no answer. How can I know who I am when all I've ever done is pretend to be something I'm not?
Pretty naked work.
And the prompt for that one was, he asked us, since it was the first poem we had to write, it was like an introduction kind of. He was like, write about who you are. And I sat there and I just stared at the page for like an hour, and I was like, I don't know.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, that was the very beginning of
The beginning
your
of the becoming.
Right? Hold on. I get it. I'm kind of curious, Gray, do you have any questions for your mentor, your master,
Oh my
your
gosh.
sensei?
I know. I feel like I come to his office sometimes, or I email him for questions. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with publishing things. How do I, especially trying to be my own publicist, or not publicist, be my own marketer and my own agent. I've had to come to Scott for a lot of things like that. I guess, well, we talk a lot about how also I get started, but even in class, I don't think you've ever really talked a lot about how you started writing.
Goodness.
And every time you talk about it, you're like, oh, my newest book, but you never talk about the old stuff.
Ancient history. I don't think it's a simple answer. I think I was always interested in language. That seemed to be innate for whatever reason. I grew up extremely poor, and something about language seemed to offer more than what we had around us, if you will. And so I frequently would find my way to books and would read. And in the reading, I discovered that there was a world that was different than what I saw around me. Or I figured if people were writing about it, it had to exist somewhere. So I kind of became determined to work towards finding that world. And that put me at odds with the world that I was surrounded by, so I frequently found myself just writing to examine these two worlds, if you will, and try to make some sense out of it. And at some point, I guess my just basic writing became decent enough that when there was like I said, we were extremely poor, so when there was any sort of local writing contest, I would write something and submit it, and I won quite frequently. So that would give me $10 in my pocket when I didn't have anything, or $25 or something along those lines. And but I was still doing the very painful writing of examining the life that I had been born into as well, and just kind of saving that stuff. It wasn't the kind of stuff that you would submit to a seventh grade writing competition. And then when I got to college, I realized that's the stuff that I really should be writing about. So that kind of took a left-hand turn away from doing another imitation of Robert Frost and instead writing something that was much more original but also much more painful. So I don't know, that's probably as good a summation of where it started as any.
Now, you're a very prolific writer. I mean, you've published a lot.
In fact, what number book is this? Is 24?
This is 24.
Whoa.
Yeah. He's beating you, Richard.
Yeah, I know.
I'm probably
I don't know,
older
how do
than
you do it?
I don't have to do a lot of research for mine. I think you have to do a lot of research for the books that you write. So that makes it a little bit easier.
But as far as the discipline of it, are you on a constant thinking about what the next one is, or Gray was talking about the inspiration hitting whenever it hits. How does that work for you?
For probably 20 or 30 years, I had a strict writing routine. I would get up at 4 a.m. before anyone else was awake, before my mind had turned towards any of the daily responsibilities, and I would work on writing, whether that was reading or writing, both of which are part of the process. I would work on writing. And then when my daughter was born 20 years ago, she was an early riser as well, so that cheated me out of that time. And I had to discover a different way, and so now I dictate quite a bit into my phone, and then when I have time, I sit down at the computer and hash it out. So that's kind of my process. But I don't know, just a few years ago, and you guys probably could tell me as much as I could, I knew that I had several book projects in mind, and I kept talking to you all, and we just started working on those projects. And once I have a project really kind of situated in my head, the fact that it's out there produces more work towards it. And so that definitely helps with getting things done, if you will, is having that project. Like right now, Patty and I met last week or 2 weeks ago.
It was a week ago.
And kind of laid out like a 5-year plan. So I have the next 5 books planned. And
when he got to the 4th one, I'm like, yep, I might be retired by this one.
I told her she's not allowed to retire, at least until we finish this plan.
So you have an overarching idea of what it's going to be, and then you kind of write to that theme?
Not exactly. I'll probably have, if there are 60 poems in the book, I'll probably have 30 written before I realize I've got the makings of a book here.
Okay.
And then I work on filling it out. I start organizing them and looking to see where the gaps are. But also, again, once you have the project in mind, it's like sowing seeds, and other poems will start to appear, sometimes quite rapidly. A good example of that is the collaboration that I did with Pris Campbell, All In. I had no idea. I mean, we literally wrote that book in about 2 months. And it's a pretty large collection of poems, but it was every day there was a new poem.
Just coming to you.
Yeah. Well, you think about the one that you ended, and that has a narrative flow to it. So you've been around stories long enough, you know that beginnings and endings are pretty arbitrary. So if I've written a poem, I'm probably won't take me long in a narrative flow. It won't take me long to figure out, well, where would I go from there? And this is it. And now I'm going to start writing that. And it just continues to flow out.
So what does it say to you on the other end of your writing career that you, after your first one, is it, and your first, how did the book come together?
Well, I was just listening to all of that, and I write in a completely different way. I can't structure myself like that. If I try and make either a writing schedule or even have a idea of where the book's going to go, then I just like stall out and I feel like I can't do anything else because I feel like I'm in a box now and I don't know where to go inside the box. That's like this chapbook. I didn't really have any plan for it. I didn't even know I was going to publish it until I started my internship for the most part, and I realized I might have the opportunity to do so. A lot of times, I mean, this one's a collection of pretty much everything I've written, and yes, it is on theme kind of with becoming, of me growing into myself, but that was not intentional by any means. It's just kind of what I was writing and where I was at, and then it kind of fit together nicely, but I don't have any plans of a next poetry collection. I'm sure I'll have one eventually, but I couldn't tell you what it would be about or where it would be going.
So you're more on the organic.
Yes. I do the same thing with short story writing because I do like to write short fiction. Half of my stories start with a character, and I don't even know what the plot's going to be until I start writing.
Because it needs to come to you
Yeah.
as it comes.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I think I've planned out a couple things maybe, but for the most part, it just has to write organically. I just have to sit down and do it.
Speaking of sections, and I know, like you say, this has been things you've worked on over the years, I'm going to switch a little bit to Scott's newest book, Elemental, because there's more structure, of course, in that. You've got sections. In fact, it's funny, it's like you have a travelogue section, and as you read it, it is a travelogue. So I encourage everyone to pick up both books, by the way, at RedPubPublications.com. But with your book, you do have sections. Travelogue being one, the journey through life being another, and you've got different structures of poetry. I noticed there's some haiku, some tanka, sonnet-like.
Quite a few that are sonnet variations. Poems, sure.
Exactly. Is that something that you plan when you write something? Do you realize it's like now I'm going to do a tanka? How is it that you come up with different variations of writing?
Very rarely do I know what form it's going to take, what shape it's going to take when I start. I do believe in letting the poem find its own shape, if you will. Occasionally I'll decide I want to challenge myself by writing a traditional form. Just recently I've got teaching an advanced class right now, and several students who are interested in traditional forms. So I wanted to write a villanelle, and sat down and made myself write a villanelle. Had a good line. With a villanelle, you have to have a couple of lines that are worth repeating, otherwise.
And you might want to define villanelle for.
Well, the villanelle is it's typically a 6-stanza. Each stanza is a tercet, 3 lines. First and third line rhyme with each other, and then the first and third line of the first stanza become the last line of each subsequent stanza, and then they're both repeated as the final 2 lines of the poem. And the middle line of each stanza rhymes as well, so the entire thing is built on just 2 rhymes. And that's where the challenge comes in. And villanelle considered one of the more difficult forms, I think, to pull off well. Classic example is Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, Dylan Thomas, or Theodore Roethke's The Waking, I Wake to Sleep and Take My Waking Slow. Usually if I throw out those lines, people will recognize them. We did pantoums as well, which is a little less difficult because you don't have to worry quite so much about the rhyming. Traditional forms can be a lot of fun, as long as I think you're conscious of the tone that a particular form almost requires. Like I challenge my student to write a funny pantoum. Every time I teach an advanced class, I challenge them to write a funny pantoum. I've only had one who pulled it off, and it was a pantoum about a cat jumping on them in the middle of the night and waking them up. And it was funny, but it also has a pantoum repeats lines, and it's like you can't get away, so it has a sense of inescapability about it. I don't know how many other situations feel inescapable and are also funny, but anyway. But yeah, there's a sestina actually in Elemental. the February poem.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of sestinas. I think it's just too much to repeat those N words over and over. So I've yet to find a whole lot of sestinas that I like.
Might you read that one for us?
Oh my God.
Now you got us curious.
Let's see. This is.
Have you written a sestina?
Not on my own, but actually when I was in New York for a little bit, that was one of our group projects, was a group sestina, and it was an interesting experience.
Wow.
Lots of arguments.
Now, you sure you want me to read this? I mean, sestinas are inherently long because it's.
You know what? Do you want to read maybe just the first part of it, and then maybe you can break down and tell us a little bit about
Sure.
the device?
So this is from the first section, which is a book of days, and books of days have been around since the medieval period, and they typically try to capture what farmers are supposed to do during that particular month or what's happening in the natural world during that particular month. So I wanted some of that, but I also wanted to give each month kind of its own personality. So there's some personal stuff in here as well, although probably not so much in this one. This is February's air of waiting. February, his feet by a fire, warms the morning's chill away, huddles under horsehair, bearskin, eats savory spinach and sweet marjoram, cradles a book of days in his hands, wearily scratches in plans of days to come. Scratching in ashes, February stokes the fire, watches flames the color of day, speak, roar, sing their way to dying, listens to the thick, sweet sound of wood burning, to skins of black ash, dry, skinny sticks, half-dead limbs scratching against each other, green wood sweating, snapping, spitting into the fire, life consumed with eating away its own body and lighting the days of February's interiors. And I'll stop there. That's 3 stanzas, and you hear the end words are all repeated in each stanza, but they're shuffled by a set pattern.
It's also the literary device of just having the sounds. They're always they're right there. They're crisp. A lot of alliteration. It's very visual.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I was always very proud of Gray, and I mentioned this already. Gray's ability to present an image that is just striking, and sound plays a role in that as well. It creates a sort of onomatopoeia where you get both the visual image and the words are creating the mood, the tone, the sense of what you're writing about. And I don't know, I think the more you read and the more you write, the less you do that sort of thing, or the less you have to do that sort of thing consciously. It begins to become almost like a basketball player that has practiced and practiced and practiced. They don't think about what they're doing in the game. They just do it seemingly instinctively. And I think that happens a lot with writers as well. But it takes an awful lot of reading and practice and trying to do things intentionally and playing around with possibilities. And
It's like for musicians, muscle memory.
Exactly.
You don't think about the note you're playing; you're just playing it.
yeah. And then the reward is after you've written something, you go back and you look at it and you're amazed at how brilliant you were, that you were able to do those things without trying.
Richard, I'm going to ask you a question because you're with these 2 poets, and you hear what they have to go through to write poetry. And there's all kinds of poetry, as you're learning, as I'm learning. As you write your books, which are mostly historical, nonfiction, what's your process that you would say is similar or very different from what, let's say, our guests are today?
Well, I really like the dedication thing, because that's what I do on Fridays. Is it's writing day. I have to try to plug myself into that. But I never realized the discipline. I just thought that's where the line took you. But you've got these forms to which you marshal your words into to make them fit the kind of forms that you're talking about. I just thought it took whatever form you wanted to that day. I didn't realize the discipline of the thing.
Well, sometimes they do take whatever form they want to take, and other times you're working kind of almost like in the vicinity of a particular form. You mentioned the sonnets.
Sonnet-like.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing in here that would be strictly a sonnet, but plenty of them resemble sonnets in the fact that they have 14 lines, and there's a turn about 2/3 of the way down through the poem. I'll answer your question for Richard to some degree. It's one of the things that I've always been impressed with is Richard's ability to tell a story. I mean, he brings history to life.
He's a storyteller.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I mean, I was just listening to, sitting out there listening to him lecture about the New Deal, and I'm like, man, this is a good story.
You know what? When I come into work, and sorry, listeners, but as I come into work and I get to hear him lecture, it makes me wish I was a student, because I guess I'm now at that age where history seems a little bit more important. But these students are really fortunate to have you, Richard.
Yeah, I wish you could tell them that. But what I'm amazed at is when the succinctness of what, the one you just read about February. I mean, you'd get right to the heart of it. I'll tell a story, but I'll go around the building to tell the thing. It takes me a long time to get to the point. And I got that in grad school because I did a paper and I was, waxing on about this. And the instructor said, Mr. Eller, if you're going to write about a dog, somewhere in the first paragraph, you need to get to the damn dog. And it's verbose at times. And, I've had editors say, you got to cut this down. But you get right to the heart of it. I mean, it is just, it is so, I hate to put it this way, but it's so elemental. It's part of the elements that's just there, and it's awesome the way that you get to the point, through February, because all of those things there are evocative of what February is like. I mean, I think of it as cold and can't wait to get to April and that sort of thing. But you celebrate that. What was it? The song on the way to dying. I left the rest of the poem when you said that, because I kept thinking that's a heck of a phrase. I may have misquoted it, but it's just a heck of a phrase. And do you get caught up in those phrases and think,
oh, absolutely.
Man, look at what I could do with that.
I honestly, the vast majority of my poems start with a line, and then the rest of the process is writing enough to deserve the right to use that line.
Now, is it the first line, or does it?
If anything, it's more often the last line, but it can be anywhere in the poem. It's just a line that I think it's a good line, and now I'm going to shape a poem to earn the rest of the right to use that line. But
that's incredible. Yeah. Now, do you do some of the same thing? I mean, do you find a line that works and you want to fashion something around it?
Yeah, there's even times that I'll write a whole poem, decide I don't like it except for one line, and then that one line will become an entirely different poem. But yeah, there's something about, you mentioned being able to really get stuck on these lines in your own work. There's really something about being able to revel in your own lines sometimes, and you write something and you're just like, I said that. And then you have to go and but then you're like, oh, well, now I have to make a whole poem about it. Okay, next step.
That's funny.
Yeah, I've only done that a couple of times, but you step back and go, damn, that's not bad,
That's funny.
Maybe I'm onto something here.
Yeah. And it leads you places.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And you know what? Before we get a little too far, there's one thing I really do want to thank Scott for, in addition to being the owner of Tasteful Beans in downtown Hickory.
Have you heard about them? They're our sponsor. They are great, yeah. They're just a wonderful place.
I'll have to try it out.
I think you should, yeah. You'll be glad you did.
That quiche, that was the thing that sold me on Tasteful Beans. The quiche is amazing. But yeah, Scott Owens, Tasteful Beans, they're our sponsor of RedPubPod, so thank you, yay. And also, you're kind of in charge of Poetry Hickory. That's been going on for how many years now?
We're in our 19th year.
19th year. That's crazy.
And so we have our regular monthly reading next month with Katie Ellen Bowers, and then 2 weeks after that, so 3 weeks from today, we're doing a book launch for Gray's
the 28th?
Coming on the 28th.
Yeah.
So October
At
28th.
6, I believe, 6:15.
October 28th is a Tuesday.
Yes.
Downtown Hickory at Tasteful Beans will be the official Tasteful Bean book launch
Yes.
for Gray's book, and we
And-
do hope you all come.
Yeah, and remember that it's a partial fundraiser for Outright Youth, which is the local LGBTQ youth center. So
Perfect. So between,
yeah. A little goes to me, a little goes to them. It'll be great.
that's the way to give back to the community. So we thank you. That means a lot. And thank you, Scott, for encouraging Gray to kind of get out there and get the book out. LR's been really good also about helping you get the word out.
Oh,
on the
yeah.
book.
I actually have a smaller kind of campus book launch the week before with staff and stuff that some of my professors have helped me organize, which is really cool.
Richard graduated from LR.
Oh, yeah.
Scott's an instructor at LR, and Gray's a student at LR. So LR, Lenoir-Rhyne University.
We are bears up one side and down the other.
There you go.
Yeah. Now, when you go on a book tour of this, for each of those books, it's a whole kind of separate skill set than it is writing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And are you now caught up in, while you're promoting this one, thinking about what one of those four that you were talking to Patty about is, how that's going to take shape?
The book or the tour?
I'm in the middle of the tour. What book's in your head?
Oh yeah, it's really difficult for me when I'm giving a reading to want to read the book that came out in August, because I'm working on all of the new poems for the book that's coming out in April, and so that's where my mind is, and I'm really excited about those, and I always think my best poems are the ones that are coming out in the next book.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Okay.
Is there another poem that you could grace us with, Scott, that you might want to read to us?
Let's see. There was one that I thought would be appropriate because I can find it. This book is probably more uplifting, more positive than most of the books that I've written. Although the last several have been, in general, more uplifting than the 15 or 20 or however many that came before that. So, and I think that's, as I'm aging, I'm becoming more mellow. But just because I'm becoming more mellow, it doesn't mean the past is completely gone either. And this book is supposedly all about nature. But I did want to read this one because I think it kind of shows how the personal is involved in nature as well. So this is Interwoven. It's on page 100 if you're looking in that book. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And if not, I'll answer questions afterwards or maybe say something else that comes to mind. Interwoven. In the backyard of the new house, in an area 300 feet square, where I want to plant rhododendron, Japanese maple, Lady Jane magnolia, I find a network of vines that boggles the mind. Blackberry and vinca, greenbrier and wisteria, honeysuckle and grape, and many I cannot name. Planted or let grow by someone grown tired of gardening, some traveling 20 feet across the ground, even further beneath the surface in search of a tree or wall or fence to climb, anything vertical in their vegetative mind. Pulling one reveals a dozen more, layered on top of each other like some multi-headed hydra, unending, insidious as shame, guilt, a sense of unworth, woven together to form an almost immovable fabric. I pull vines with a passion I don't completely understand for hours at a time, days in a row, and weeks later still feel I've gained so little ground and only found an unsought secret to how unwanted things last. So I will say, you were talking about forms, and to me, even though this poem is quite a bit longer than 14 lines, it is it imitates a sonnet pattern in the sense that 2/3 of the poem is talking about pulling these vines in the backyard, and only when I introduce the phrase insidious as shame.
And that's the phrase.
That's the turn.
Okay.
And so from that point on, the poem shifts and the whole thing becomes metaphoric, and it's metaphoric for my very bad childhood and how it's always there under the surface, no matter, I went through therapy. I've written probably my biggest motivator for writing was to deal with that childhood, and I've written about it forever, and it's still there. And I'm quite literally, I'm in the backyard, I'm pulling these vines, and I start crying. And I'm like, why am I crying about pulling vines? And I realize because I'm seeing live in front of me the metaphor for the consequences of this PTSD childhood, if you will.
And as someone who's pulled vines, I feel you. It doesn't matter what kind of whatever you're planting. It's interesting what's underneath. You know what I mean? You just think it might be something an inch deep, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh gosh, it's crabgrass, and it's going on forever.
Yeah. Now, I always thought that I liked wisteria until I had to deal with this backyard, and now it's enemy number one. I hate wisteria.
Chokes everything else out. It's beautiful, but it kills everything else.
Insidious as shame, is that the phrase that you like hung on to build the poem around with the weed pulling and everything?
I'm not really sure. I think with this one, I really just wanted to try to describe the physical act of pulling vine after vine after vine, and it just seeming to never end. And I knew at some point that I did want to call it insidious, and it just kind of clicked, insidious as shame. But yeah, I did feel like that was the key line. It just wasn't necessarily the first one in that poem.
Because you mix the mundane, the pulling weeds, the garden stuff that we all got to do, but it takes a real turn there.
Right.
Now, do you ever teach, when you teach poetry, do you use your work as like examples?
I do quite a bit, and to be honest, I sometimes feel guilty about that. It's like, why can't I? But, I mean, I can't talk about the beginning of the process, or the beginning or the process of a poem that someone else wrote. I can about a poem that I wrote. So I just feel like it's easiest for me to point things out to students when I use my own work. I use plenty of work by others as well, but yes, I do use my own.
Okay. And then when students write, I take it you use some of that as a teaching moment kind of thing?
Absolutely. The poem Becoming by Gray I use as a sample of the prompt that I give them. It's called a declaration of self. That's the prompt that I give them. And Gray's poem is part of a batch of like 6 sample poems that I use.
I'd be curious to see the version of that poem that you have, because I know it's different.
But
it's changed.
It's not that different.
I know it's like still kind of the same concept, but I don't even remember what I changed.
Well, I can
honestly.
tell you in the 4th stanza where you had the image of weaving the web of my mind into a knot impossible to untangle. That's not in the version.
It wasn't?
that I have.
Okay.
Well, I will say, and I guess this is as good as time as any, we are in Pushcart Award nominee time, and I am nominating Becoming. That particular poem.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good choice. That's
Well,
still my
thank
favorite
you.
poem in the book.
I think it was the one that
It's part of why I
us
made.
decide we were going to do it. But
Although-
welcome to being nominated for a Pushcart.
Wow.
Although
Never usually win, but it's always an honor.
Yeah,
I also really like La Petite Morte.
That's another.
that's a fun one.
Yeah.
Do you want to read that one for
Sure.
us?
We'll get in
That's
trouble now.
What page is that on?
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, you're right.
Towards the end.
But,
Yeah.
but it is fun.
44.
I tend to read from the back, so that's why.
That one is a little funny to me because I've had people be like, "Oh, it's very interesting, and what's it about?" It's like, look it up. I'm not gonna tell you. La Petite Morte. I feel it building, boiling under my ribs, pushing up my throat, trying to escape through my shredded vocal cords, peeling the skin back on my face. I want to peel back your dress, sink my claws into something sweet, maim it. Rip your supple skin and hold your jugular delicately between my teeth. I'll end you with this little death as you drain the heat from my soul. But my lips still crave the penny taste of blood, and you are not here. So I'll rip at my own weathered skin, sink my claws into my own rotted flesh, and cry out in agony at my own little death, only to find this hunger that still rages within me. Only you could ever be enough to quench it.
La Petite Morte. Merci, madame. A wonderful collection. Once again, we encourage everybody to go to our website
RedHawkPublications.com.
and get your copies. I think we're actually kind of coming to the end of this. So, again, we just encourage people to go to our website. Please make sure you come to Poetry Hickory's second Tuesday of every month at Tasteful Beans. And also, of course, to the book event for Gray, which will be at October 28th, Tuesday, also at Tasteful Beans. All of this information will be in our description of this pod. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to RedPubPod, and follow us on our social media platforms, which include most updated frequently would be Facebook as well as Instagram, occasionally X and LinkedIn, but you're going to find everything you really need on Instagram and Facebook. I think that's really it. One last thing we have to do.
One last thing, yeah.
What would that be, sir?
Our podcast is called RedPubPod. Can you say that?
RedPubPod.
Yay, we got one.
Yeah, we got one. One more time.
RedPubPod.
There you go.
RedPubPod.
Okay.
RedPubPod.
We did it.
Thank you so much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, join us again.
This is
RedPubPod. RedPubPod.
RedPubPod.
a podcast
Yay, we got one.
Yeah, we got one.
from Red Hawk Publications.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.